Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Today, we will the next part of the topic discussed earlier. So, without taking much of your time, I would like to invite Miss Nidhi ma'am to continue today's session. Ma'am, the stage is yours. Thank you.
So, good evening to all of you. Today, we are starting with GSR, which is gunshot residue. Once my PPT is visible to all of you, please let me know. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, today we are starting off with GSR, which is gunshot residue, which we can also call as cartridge case
Ma'am, your
discharge
screen is
residue.
now invisible.
Is not visible.
No, ma'am. It's a stop sharing.
Okay. Okay. Is it now visible?
Yes, ma'am. Now is it clear?
Okay, so GSR, which is also called as cartridge case discharge residue, CDR, or firearm discharge residue, FDR, or these are the unburnt or partially burnt particles of gases, non-volatile substances, which is coming from primer, propellant, bullet, and firearm. So basically, an ammunition is made up of cartridge case, which is made up of either brass or copper. Then it is filled up with primer. Then comes propellant. Then we have our projectile, which is made up of either lead or it does have that copper jacket. So this discharge residue is made up from everything which is present there in ammunition. So it is visible and invisible. It depends on factors like yesterday we have seen the wounds. In those wounds we were able to see that soot deposition and that residues, and that those residues we can find inside a wound. Then comes their location, testing and identification. It plays a important role in investigative trial, while absence of GSR can also give significant information. So we have already studied this yesterday. If anyone has any doubt in firing process, they can ask me. This is the same. Do you have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we should move forward. This is the history of GSR analysis, which is not much asked in your college examination. It can be asked in competitive examinations, but till now I haven't seen any questions regarding this. But you can just see that in early 1900 there was development of chemical nitrate test, which is also known as paraffin test, and its significance was early screening replaced due to false positive results. Then in 1971, we had SAM micrographs of GSR particles, which was developed by John Boehm. And in this, we are looking at the particle morphology and elemental analysis. Okay, instead of SAM, we can also do this elemental analysis using EDXRF. If you guys know, energy dispersive X-ray XRF, energy dispersive X-ray fluorometry, I guess, fluorescence. Okay, I'm not remembering the exact name of EDXRF. So this is what we are using right now. We have used EDXRF for the analysis of GSR. Then in 1979, Walton gave the classification of GSR particles, which was a composition based categorization. Then in 1984, Wallace and McKillin refined the classification, defined unique particle, elemental signatures. Then in 1994, ASTM standard E1588 for SAM EDS forensics. Standardization of analysis in 2005, formation of SWGGSR, international guidelines and collaboration. These things are not important for us. So we will be moving on this. From here, the important part is getting started. Like in India, what you will be finding as an evidence, it is given here. On the hands, mainly present on thumb, trigger, finger, and web of the hand. On the clothes of the victim, if the human being is the target. If you are like firing on a like we have two types of ballistic. One is terminal and other is wood. So when it is wound, the person will be wearing clothes, or even if they are not wearing clothes, you will be finding the GSR particles on their skin. And if the person is wearing clothes, you will be finding those GSR particles on their clothes. So during when you want to examine GSR in case of death, which is because of the projectile, you will be getting clothes as an evidence also. Then comes intermediate targets may also have GSR deposition. Can anyone tell me what can be those intermediate targets?
Maybe glass or
Yes.
wood.
Those intermediate targets can be glass. Like if you have seen that people are sitting in the front on the driver's seat of a car, and then they get fired. So the intermediate target between the victim and the culprit was the glass. So those were the intermediate target. You will be able to find the GSR particles on that glass. Then comes inside of cartridge case and barrel. It may have GSR because from when you are firing, it will be having a lot of expansion of gases, so you will be able to find the primer and propellant charged residues in the barrel itself. And that thing inside the barrel, it causes the caking effect. In addition, outside the surface of the barrel can also be examined for GSR. Can anyone tell me what test do we perform when we swab the barrel from inside? If anyone have any idea, I'm not forcing, but if you guys have any idea.
Ma'am, scanning electron microscopic with energy dispersive.
No, I'm asking for the chemical test. Scanning electron microscope is an instrumental analysis, right? I'm asking, we swabbed the GSR and we just want to confirm that GSR was present. We just did the swabbing thing. And this is a chemical test, very common.
Then
Have
Sodium
you heard of the GRES test?
rhodizonate.
GRES test, nitrate and nitrite test?
Ma'am, sodium
Yeah, sodium rhodizonate we use.
sodium hydro,
But GRES test is
antimony also, ma'am.
more commonly used test is GRES test. Okay. These tests, we, yes, we do study in our books that yes, we are using this test, yes, we are using that test, but till now, like I have worked in two laboratories, and till now I have seen like there are very less cases of GSR. And if there are cases of GSR, they will just be giving positive or negative based on nitrate and nitrite test, which is GRES test, which gives the red rose color. That's it, red rose pink color. That's the only test laboratories are using. GSR is not a very well developed area in India till, like, I do feel like that in Chandigarh only GSR analysis is going in a perfect way. Okay. So fired projectile may also be examined for gunshot residue. Why is it so? Why we are using the fired projectile for gunshot residue? Because it might have some particles, some unburnt or some remained particles on it, which we can be using as gunshot residue for analysis. Then GSR analysis determines the presence of these materials on skin and clothing of the subjects and surfaces such as vehicle. We will be collecting it using swab, right? So while we are swabbing it, we are using chemical analysis technique such as GREDS test, sodium rhodizonate test. Then we do have a green dye test, if you all know about that. Do you have any idea about the green dye test?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So these are some questions, like the examination and evaluation of GSR has helped to solve a number of problems. Has the given firearm been fired or not? If that firearm was fired, so you will be able to find the GSR particles inside the barrel, right? If it is recently fired or it has been fired, so you will be able to find the GSR particles. Then has the given ammunition been fired or not? Now, what's the difference between firearm and ammunition in this? We are having a cartridge case in which the primer, the propellant and the projectile is fitted. Now projectiles are different, right? You have lead projectile, then you have copper jacketed. In some projectile, if you have heard about the jacketed bullets, you have a copper jacket on that. So in that case, you will be able to find the copper also in your residues. What type of ammunition is used in firing? Again, the same thing. Has the given bullets, pellets, cartridge been fired or not? You will be able to find it. Who fired the gun? I feel like how will we determine this who fired the gun? Can anyone tell me about this thing? Like in which context this who fired the gun is used?
Everyone give answer, please.
Ma'am, could you please repeat the question?
This fifth question, who fired the gun?
Ma'am,
No answers? In previous slide, we have discussed that where can you find the gunshot residue if you are firing a gun on the web of the hand. That's the main portion where you will be able
clothing.
to.
Ma'am, nearby object.
Ma'am, clothings are handled persons.
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Can you, can like Nitya Anantham, can you please speak again?
Ma'am, cloths are fingerprints, ma'am.
Fingerprints is okay, but that's not a ballistic related evidence. If I have to find who fired the gun, then I will be using that ballistic related evidence, right? I will be trying to find the GSR particles on the web of the hands of that person.
Nearby object we can take for that.
Yeah, we can take nearby objects. But by nearby objects, how will you be able to determine that who fired the gun? We are not able to like completely know that yes, this person is the one who fired the gun. There are various corroborative evidences, Amolika. I agree. What you are saying is correct. But those are corroborative evidences, right? When I'm talking
Yes,
about
ma'am.
ballistic, and when we are studying about gunshot residue, which is GSR, then how will I be able to determine that this person is the one who is the culprit? I will be able to find GSR particles on the ear mucosum of that person, in the nose mucosum of that person, on the clothes of that person, on the web of the hand of that person, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, one thing.
Yes, Fatima.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if we are getting GSR from a person's hand, is that enough to say that this person has fired a gun or any other supporting thing?
That if that person has fired a gun, how will we like? What is your question? I am not able to hear you properly.
Yes, ma'am. If we are getting GSR from a person's hand, is that enough to say that that person has fired a gun?
Yeah, because see, have you seen those kind of cases? I'm giving you an example. Have you seen those kind of cases where the culprit fired the gun and the one who is like who got fired, who is the victim, you will be able to see the gun in their hand, right? So how will you be able to determine that was it a homicide or was it a suicide? This I'm
Ma'am, your
giving as
voice
an
is
example.
breaking.
Ma'am, if it is homicide, the person might have fired from in any parts of the body, but if it is suicide, it might be in the skull, or that is near the brain, or in the
If
center point.
you are talking in context of suicide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But there is one more evidence which you can find when it is the case of suicide or it is a case of homicide. You will be able to determine it very easily when if it is a
Suicide
suicide or
means
if it is a.
if the person might be holding the gun with them, even
See,
if they are
let me
dead.
tell you one thing. first we are talking in the context of homicide. Okay, if someone is someone is killing the other person, that's homicide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's culpable homicide, right? If I'm killing a person, like, see, I am A and someone is B, I am killing that person B with the help of a gun. So where will be the GSR particles? In the web of the hand of me, right? And if you are
Yes, ma'am.
not in a rainy place, if you are not in an open environment, that GSR particles will be present in your hand. And if you have portrayed that scene, that crime scene, as a suicide, like you gave that gun to the person who already got shot, then you know a term in forensic medicine which is cadaveric spasm, right? That
Yes, ma'am.
person won't be holding that gun with so much grip. And the second thing, that like you will be able to see that the person who is a victim, you will be able to find their fingerprint on the firearm, right? So here fingerprinting messed up. But the GSR particles are the main clue. If the person is not laid in rain, if that person is not in water, so you will be able to find those GSR particles on their hand. And if you are not able to find adequate amount of GSR particles in the hand of the victim, you can directly say that yes, this case is not a suicide. Because first thing we talked about is cadaveric spasm. That person who got killed won't be able to hold the gun with so much grip, right? First thing. From there I was able to determine whether it was a suicide or whether it was an homicide. In case of, when I'm talking in case of fingerprint, it can get messed up. Who agrees?
Yes, ma'am.
It might get messed up, right? But you will be able to find a very adequate amount of GSR particles in a person's hand who is firing. But what if that person, like Mahalakshmi asked this doubt yesterday, and I'm answering you today with this question itself. We are losing evidences when it comes to forensic ballistics. Because what if the criminal who just fired a gun took a bath? GSR washed away, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that takes a lot of time in these kind of cases.
Ma'am, I have also one question.
Yes.
Ma'am, in case of homicide, these
Yes.
GSR particles can be detected on victim as well.
Yeah, you can be able to get it from the victim's body. But you, like yesterday someone asked me, I guess that Sanu named girl, she asked me that will I be able to determine a case when the projectile is not present. So if there is a wound, of course the projectile will be there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you will be able to find GSR. But if it is like the shot is very far, like you have shot a person from a very distant, like you were standing at a very distant position and that person was like nearly, like, just assume that person was at least 900-meter away from you, then the GSR will be very less. Because now the projectile entered the body, so projectile was carrying some GSR itself. So that GSR will get transferred to either the clothes of the person or on the skin of that person, but it will be very less in amount, right? But as now we are shooting from very close distance, then you will be finding more GSR, right? So the quantity of GSR might get compromised.
Okay, ma'am.
So Fatima, is your doubt cleared?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So did the suspect shoot or is it a suicide? I have already answered this via two context, homicide and suicide thing. Is the present wound a firearm injury? I have told you yesterday that there is a current, like there is a current injury, there is an electrical injury which looks like firearm injury. So how will you be able to determine if it is a firearm injury or not? Now you guys are going to answer me. And if you don't know, just say no. I will be telling you and moving on.
Ma'am, bullet marks to identify, ma'am.
Yes?
Bullet
Yeah, I
marks.
am telling you same thing. See, there is a there is an electrical injury which looks similar like the firearm injury, which looks similar like the bullet injury. The wounds look similar like the entry and exit wound. So that electrical energy is very similar to that ballistic injury. Now, in that type of case, how will you be able to determine if it is an electrical injury or if it is a ballistic injury?
Ma'am, bullet chemicals to identify, ma'am.
That GSR thing we are going to analyze.
Okay, ma'am.
We will be analyzing gunshot residue. Like Tanisha Singh asked me that you will how will I be able to find, will I be finding GSR in every case? So yes, you will be able to find GSR even if it is in less amount. You will be finding it in every case if the body is not exposed to rain, water, and the things from which the GSR washed away. You will be able to find GSR, and from that GSR you will be able to determine whether this injury is a firearm injury or it is an electrical injury. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So what was the range of firing? Again, I told you effective range we talked about yesterday. Then is the present firearm wound or an entry or exit wound? We talked about entrance and exit wound yesterday. That entrance wound is smaller in comparison of exit wound. So that's the same thing we will be determining here. Then comes components of gunshot residue. The composition of gunshot residue depends upon the formulation of primer, formulation of propellants, the barrel scraping the metal. I talked about the washing effect because of the heat problems. So those barrel scrapings, the particles from barrel which will be chipping off because of the heat effect. It will also be a part of the gunshot residue. Then the composition of the projectile. Then ammunition primers consist of 4 basic chemical components. The initiator, we have talked about this yesterday. Lead stepnet, which is a primary explosive, is standard initiator in modern primer. Lead azide and mercury fulminate is also an initiator. Then comes the oxidizer. Barium nitrate is most commonly used as an oxidizer in small arms ammunition, but barium peroxide, lead nitrate, and lead peroxides are also used. Now, why do we need oxygen? When we are talking about fire, why do we need oxygen? Does anyone knows? Go to that fire triangle thing which you have studied in forensic chemistry. No idea?
No, ma'am.
Oxygen is basically used for keeping a fire burnt in a burnt state. Like oxygen is required, right? Have you seen that fire triangle? We need fuel, oxygen plus fire initiator. So oxygen is required in order to keep the fire moving, like to keep that fire burnt. So these are the oxidizer: barium nitrate, barium peroxide, lead nitrate, and lead peroxide. Then comes the fuel. Antimony sulfide is commonly used as a fuel in primers, but calcium silicide, lead thiocyanate. This question is from UGC NET. Lead thiocyanate, why lead thiocyanate is used as a fuel? No, what is lead thiocyanate used for in firearms? So it is used as fuel. Then comes powdered aluminum and powdered zirconium, magnesium, and titanium. Then the sensitizers. Commonly used sensitizers are tetrazine 1,5-tetrazoliol, 4-guanyl tetrazine hydrate. We haven't heard this name till now. We have heard just about pentaerythritol and tetranitrate and trinitrotoluene, TNT, and pentaerythritol. That's it. We haven't heard about this tetrazine till now. Even haven't seen this in exams. But this is important for you because UGC NET is changing day by day. So you will be able to solve it. Then gunpowder we have already studied yesterday. Smokeless powder, single base and double base we have studied yesterday. Then these are the stabilizer: diphenylamine, the centralites, and resorcinol diphenylamine, which is DPA. It is the stabilizer which is used in smokeless powder, especially in single base powders. Then comes the plasticizer glyceryl triacetate, which is triacetine. We have just heard this name of this glyceryl triacetate. Then comes dimethyl phthalate, diethyl phthalate, and dibutyl phthalate. Then flash suppressor. Dinitrotoluene is used as flash suppressor. You just have to remember the name of stabilizer, the explosives which we are using, the name of plasticizers which we are using, and the name of like lubricants, and the name of the primary explosives which we are using in our primer. That's it. You don't have to do any complicated mathematics in this thing. You just remember these names. That's it. So dinitrotoluene is used as a flash suppressor in some smokeless powder. Nitroguanidine fulfills the same role. Nitroguanidine is more better than dinitrotoluene. This was told to me by our officer. The role of flash suppressor is to produce nitrogen gas to dilute the muzzle gases. Then comes the lubricant. The powder grains are also coated with graphite, which we have seen yesterday in black powder. Then bullets, the core of the bullet is made up of lead plus antimony 85% plus 15 lead, tin which is SN 90 to 98% plus 2 by 10%. The jacket of bullet, if the bullet is jacketed, then only we are talking about this thing. If the bullet is not jacketed, then we are not talking about these, which are copper alloys with zinc or tin steel. The detectable inorganic components of GSR is lead, barium, antimony, copper from the jacket, iron from the barrel, nitrates and nitrite, zinc from the jacket if it is jacketed, nickel from the nickel coated shell. Then the detectable organic components of gunshot residue is nitrocellulose, which is unburned and semi-burned. Then comes nitroglycerin, diphenylamine stabilizer, DNT dinitrotoluene, which is used as a plasticizer, and bullet lubricants. Then we have already seen the locations of gunshot residue where we can be able to find the gunshot residues. The basic principle of trace and transfer evidence is Locard's exchange principle. Then how will you be able to detect those gunshot residue? You will be able to perform chemical test, X-ray photography, IR photography. Like the IR photography is basically used to visualize heavy suit on dark and bloody clothing or on the multicolored surfaces. And we are using chemical methods which that girl said, sodium rhodizonate. So this is visualization of GSR by IR photography on multicolored bloody surface. Are you able to determine the difference between this? If this surface would be black or the surface would be completely maroon or red and you won't be able to see this wetness which you are able to see it here, IR photography would be revealing that also. Then coming on to collection of gunshot residue. This is from B.R. Sharma. There is method which is wet methods. 5% nitric acid is commonly used for collecting inorganic contents of GSR. Then you will be doing tape lifting. This technique has mainly been used to sample inorganic residues, and this is done for SEM analysis. If you are swabbing the GSR, you will be able to perform chemical test, and if you are tape lifting the GSR, you will be able to perform SEM analysis. Then comes collection of organic residue, which is by swabbing. Swabbing is the most common technique for collection of organic residue. And acetone is the most suitable solvent for collection of organic residues. Other solvent like cyclohexane and ethanol. Then comes vacuum lifting. Vacuum lifting has never been used in India till now. It is commonly used technique for collecting organic gunshot residue from clothing. Clothing debris is vacuumed on a filtered disc, and then filter is extracted with solvent and recover the organic gunshot residue. Its main advantage are its ease of operation and fact that a larger area can be sampled within a short time. This is collection of GSR by adhesive tape method. Then sample pre-treatment. In many chromatographic analysis, the analytical systems are able to detect pure standards of organic gunshot residues down to low nanogram levels, but such sensitivity cannot be achieved with extracts from hand swabs or vacuumed clothing samples. This problem arises because such extracts are substantially contaminated with lipids and other co-extracted materials, with the result in deterioration of the separation column and detector. That's why these kind of methods are not till now used in India. Then comes analytical methods, which is chemical tests. Gress reagent test. Gress reagent, which is based on the formation of a diazonium salt. When the nitrite in acid solution react with primary aromatic amine, which is a common example, is a solution of alpha naphthylamine and sulfonic acid. You are just like take two chemicals, which is alpha naphthylamine and sulfonic acid, and mix it with acetic acid. Then the sulfonic acid reacts with the nitrites, which is present in the gunshot residue, to yield the diazonium ion, which then couples with alpha naphthylamine to produce a red azo dye. This is how you will be able to see the Gress test result. Okay. Then comes sodium rhodizonate test. This test is commonly used to detect lead residues from exhibits. Weak solution of sodium rhodizonate we are preparing in distilled water, and we are applying it on sample. In presence of lead, it gives pink color, and to confirm the lead residue, the area can spray with dilute HCl solution. If the pink color turn to blue, then the presence of lead is confirmed. You can see it here. Like this, when we sprayed sodium rhodizonate, and this when we also sprayed solution of dilute HCl on that. Then modified Gress test and sodium rhodizonate test yield positive reaction to nitrite compounds and lead respectively, whether or not the source is in fact of from gunshot residue. So this can be a drawback of this test. Then comes thin layer chromatography. When we are performing this test, this color is given, like this color we use to check it in thin layer chromatography with the help of toluene, petroleum ether, and ethyl acetate. By the way, these tests are not performed in India. They will just be performing that Gress test. Till now, I have only seen the Gress test getting performed in laboratories, and only the Gress test gives the result, and they will be writing it in the report that yes, the nitrite was present. That means the firearm was fired before, and that firearm was like after that the firearm will be fired for the test firing, because if you will fire it for the test firing before, then you will be getting the gunshot residue. How will you be able to determine that if the gunshot residue present in the barrel is because of your test firing or because that firearm was fired before, right? So this thin layer chromatography never performed till now. Then come instrumental analysis of gunshot residue, which is by scanning electron microscopy with an energy dispersive X-ray analyzer or SEM EDX. SEM EDX I have never seen, but SEM EDXRF I have seen. EDXRF is like present in all NFSUs, and our seniors did perform their dissertation on EDXRF, and there were several gunshot residue which didn't give result, which didn't give their elemental composition. So the SEM EDX is usually equipped to detect electrons generated by two different processes for imaging secondary and backscattered and with X-rays for compositional analysis. Technique is specific for characteristics and morphological analysis of inorganic gunshot residue particles. Particle by particle studies are possible when it is scanning electron microscopy, and it is a non-destructive technique. It provides high resolution and magnification in excess of this scale. So, do you guys know about the mechanism of scanning electron microscopy, or should I be telling you that? If you know, then we should just move forward.
Okay, ma'am.
Uh, Priya, can you please ask?
Everyone give answer, please.
Yes, ma'am.
If they
Yes,
already
ma'am.
know, then we will just move forward because
Yes, ma'am, you can.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yeah.
scanning electron microscopy, I do have pictures, but I'm not allowed to show it to you because those are some confidential pictures of the projectiles. So this is the SAM image of gunshot residue particles. By the way, we haven't done SAM imaging for gunshot residue particles on human body. We have tried it on projectiles. Then these are the spectras. Then this is the uniqueness of composition when am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am,
Yes,
you are
ma'am.
ma'am.
audible.
Okay. So till where did I complete it? So we were studying uniqueness of composition when lead, antimony, and barium combine into a single particle. It is defined as being unique to GSR since there is no other known source of this compound. Okay, each individual element or other combinations of these elements with high temperature features are classified as characteristic of GSR. Then this lead, antimony, and barium, when these are found in a single particle, then we will be telling that yes, GSR is present. Some example of some chief commercial or industrial uses of PB, SB, and BA are as follows, which is lead, melting point 327 degrees centigrade, storage batteries, solder bearing materials, gasoline, bullet shot paints, shielding steels, cable coverings, glass, matches, dyes, and pyrotechniques. Then comes antimony, its melting point is 440 degrees C. Hardening alloys, lead base, paint, pigment, safety matches, bearings, pewter utensils, brake pads, and pyrotechnics. Okay, can someone tell me that when you are having gold as an evidence in physics, you will be able to find antimony? You will be able to find the residues of antimony in that. Like I have checked gold and EDXRF, and in that elemental composition, I was able to find antimony. So, what role does it plays?
Give answer, please.
Okay. So it is basically used for hardening that jewelry, which is not like which is not complete gold. So you will be able to modify the shape. Antimony is used for hardening that particular jewelry. Okay. Then comes barium, whose melting point is 850 degrees, and it is a deoxidizing alloy of tin, copper, lead, and zinc. Radiography in heat treating baths for tempering of steel in laser crystals, dyes, inks, leather tanning, photographic chemicals, insecticides, paper products, and pyrotechnics. Then the decisive factor of identification of GSR are specific composition, morphology, and chemistry of the particles. as well as the characterization of overall population of particles detected on the same sample. This is not which is very important for you. And this graphite furnace atomic absorption spectroscopy I have never seen till now, and it is not used in India. It is just for your knowledge. This is a very sensitive quantitative analysis method for trace elements of primer residue such as lead, antimony, and barium. AAS works on very simple principle. An element absorbs the radiation of the same wavelength as it emits when excited. The absorption signal measured during the atomization stage is proportional to the amount of analyte elements in a sample. Then comes inductively coupled plasma mass spectroscopy, which is ICP-MS. Inductively coupled plasma mass spectroscopy is a bulk method of analysis used to measure only the trace amounts. When you are having only trace amounts of a gunshot residue, you will be able to analyze it via inductively coupled plasma because it can measure the trace amounts of particles. So it will be able to measure the trace amounts of lead, barium, and antimony in primer residue sample. It operates by coupling an argon plasma to the radio frequency electromagnetic field at atmospheric pressure. Samples are usually introduced in liquid form. Detection limits are usually in parts per billion level. Then techniques for organic gunshot residue, HPLC, which is high performance liquid chromatography, with mass spectroscopy, capillary electrophoresis. Till this date, I haven't seen people even using it for their dissertation. Micellar electrokinetic capillary electrophoresis is a bulk method of analysis that is designed to separate and detect organic and explosive material components. Then limitation in organic residues is nitrocellulose, also in widespread used in many consumer products such as lacquers and paints. And nitroglycerin is not only used in double and triple base gunpowders, but it is also used in pharmaceutical products in which its role is cardiac stimulant. Then this is the significance of a gunshot residue. It used to determine who was the shooter. Many variation plays part in identification of the hand that fired the shot. The major variables are the nature of the firearm, the length of the barrel, the time elapsed since firing. Then distribution of GSR on hands. GSR particles on the back of the hand, which is right or left, then GSR particles from the back of both hands, GSR particles on both side of both hands, GSR particles on the palm of both hands. Here you are able to see how this person is holding a firearm or a gun. In this case, this hand will also be getting GSR, and this hand will also be getting GSR particles. And here also. So these are generally accepted particles which I for GSR identification in case of shooter identification. But I have, like, to be honest, I have worked in a lab, and there I have only seen that yes, they just perform nitrite and nitrate test, and that's it. They don't even think it was lead, it was barium, antimony, nothing. They just go that yes, it gave pink color, then it gave blue color, that's it, that test ended, and the result was shown. So persistence of GSR, notable decrease in first 1 to 3 hours after discharge with greatest loss in the first hour. Then GSR can persist longer on less distributed areas like head, ears, and nostril, which we are talking. That you will be able to find GSR particles in your ear mucosum and nostrils, clothing, or hair, potentially detectable up to 24 hours or more depending on the environment and activity. By here activity, by activity here we are meaning that if what if that person takes bath, what if that person cleans their ears, what if that person like wash their hair, so we won't be able to find that GSR. The persistence also varies depending on firearm and ammunition use. Then the physical activity like washing or wiping or removing of residues, environmental exposure such as wind, rain, and surface contact. Body area sampled. Hand loose GSR faster than face or hair samples because people used to wash their hands like more often. Do you guys wash your face 10 times a day? but we do wash our hands 10 times a day. So in this case, hands lose GSR faster than face and hair samples. Then comes ammunition and firearm type. It influences the initial amount and distribution of GSR. Then this is again the initial period, which is 0 to 1 to 3 hours. The highest concentration of GSR particles is found immediately after the firing, okay, particularly on the hands of the shooter. Then comes rapid loss. It occurs in first hour or two, mainly due to normal activities such as they wash their hands after killing someone. You will, like, this is very basic, like they do wash their hands. Then rubbing or contact with surfaces, like you touch some other thing, GSR might get transferred to that surface, but it will get damaged. When we are talking about GSR evidence, you won't be able to find it as you are finding it on hand of a person. Then the number of GSR particles can decrease by the factor of 10 or more during this period. Then short-term persistence up to 24 hours. GSR can still be detectable on hands, face, hair and clothing within 24 hours after firing, although in reduced amount, because there might be wind. You will be having fans in your home, you will be sitting under that fan, you might be sleeping on a bed, so that might get transferred to your bed, that might get transferred to your sofa, that might get removed because of the wind. So you will be able to find it, but in reduced amount. So persistent depends on physical activity and environmental condition. Areas like ears and nostrils may retain residues longer due to less disturbance than medium term persistent. Detectability drastically decreases after the first day. While GSR detection beyond 3 days is rare, some particles may persist longer under certain conditions. The longer the time elapsed, the less reliable the GSR's presence becomes as evidence. Long-term GSR particles typically become undetectable due to shedding of skin cells, washing, and environmental exposure. Then we were talking about secondary transfer with transfer of GSR, which I have already taught you before. Like the person is having GSR present in their hand, and they transferred, like they touched some other surface while they were having presence of GSR in their hands. They touched a table, they slept on a sofa, they slept on a bed. So this is what we are talking, like this is what we are talking in secondary transfer. So the secondary transfer involves GSR particles being transferred from one person or surface to another after initial firing event, such as person picking up particles from another individual or a contaminated environment. Okay, let's assume a case that I shot someone and then after that I shake hand with my friends. So in that case, that GSR particle which was present in my hand will get transferred to the person, to the hand of the person with whom I shake my hands, right? Then comes experimental studies. It confirmed that relatively large amount of GSR can be transferred immediately after the discharge, because people used to do that kind of activities after killing someone. They might like wipe their hands on their clothes. They might, like they might go to someone and shake their hand, maybe their friends. They might drink a glass of water, so in that GSR will get transferred to that glass. This complicates forensic interpretation since GSR presence may not definitely prove that the person fired a weapon, only that they had contact with GSR particles. Then effect of firearms and ammunition. This is not really important when it comes to understanding, but you should just read this portion. Then these are the controversial cases, but I have prepared some case studies for you, and I will be showing it. So till here everything is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
So Mahalakshmi was asking me some doubts yesterday. Mahalakshmi, are your doubts clear now? Like, what are the challenges for ballistics?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, I have seen some real life stories, like some real life cases. One case of this, like firearm shooting, happened just near me. Like just with my neighbors. So should I discuss that, or should I just discuss the case studies which are available on internet?
Ma'am, share your own experience, ma'am.
Like,
First
you
one.
won't be able to read those experiences from from internet. If you want to go in deep, I will be sharing you those.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am a resident of Ratlam, Madhya Pradesh, and here I live in a place named Rajiv Nagar. You will be able to find this case. So exactly in 2017, a case occurred. Like, there was a woman. She was a milk seller, and there was a man. He was doing that welding. If you guys know welding, do you guys know
Yes,
what
ma'am.
welding is? So he was the owner of that welding shop, and they had a daughter who was an Instagram influencer. I'm not going to reveal name as it is not ethical. So when it was Choti Diwali, if you all know about Dev Utmi Ekadashi, on that night, what happened with them, that everyone was like, they were firing crackers and doing these things. So that person came with two persons, like there were three people in total who came here and fired a gun. When, like, you all know that there is a bomb named as Rassi bomb, right? Do
Yes,
you
ma'am.
guys know about that Rassi bomb?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so the sound of Rassi bomb is like very, it produces a very large sound. It is like very high velocity sound you will be able to hear. So there was one person who was standing in the balcony, like hiding from everyone. He was standing in the balcony, and he was noticing if there was anyone in the colony firing, like trying to burst a Rassi bomb. He will be showing hands to his like his friend, and at that exact time, that person fired a gun. So there were two people in that family at that current time. It was mom and the daughter. So the mom was sitting on the bed as she was paralyzed. She was paralyzed, so she was sitting on the bed. So when first Rassi bomb like bursted, that person fired a gun. At the exact time he fired the gun, and that like at that time, that gun went inside the skull. It gave a stellate wound to that woman who was paralyzed, who was the mother. And then comes the daughter. The daughter was lighting up diyas in the kitchen. Then she wasn't like, their home was so big, so she wasn't aware that there is someone in their house. When she heard that sound, she came in the hall. When she came in the hall, like there were two-story building. So she was downstairs and her mom was upstairs. She wasn't aware that there is someone who went in their home. Like, there are a lot of crackers getting burnt. If someone belongs from MP, they know that people are very excited for Diwali here. So a lot of crackers were burning here. She wasn't aware. She was in the kitchen lighting up the diyas, and her mother was upstairs. So when she heard that sound, she felt that something is wrong. She went upstairs. And when those people were running, because they came for robbery, when those peoples were running, she was shot on the like gate of that house. Again, people thought it is just the Rassi bomb. Then father came. The father was shot dead in the hall, which was situated like below. You know, कल घर में घर बनाते हैं लोग, in the basement of the house. Do you guys know the basement, that people have a basement in their homes and they do? So the father
Yes,
came.
ma'am.
So the father came from work and he went to the basement of the house, and he was just hidden there. People have seen that, yes, like he saw us killing these people. He is going to police and telling everything. So they shot him dead in the basement of that house. So here is how three people were shot dead. So on the mother, the wound was stillet wound, because the, what should I say, the projectile went inside the skull. first. The mother shot it. Now the daughter was killed like by firing the bullet on her chest. So that girl had the bullet, the entry wound present on her chest. Then the father. The people were standing on the stairs, and her father was in basement hiding. So they shot him directly on the skull. So there was a bibbling or chipping in his skull. So here is how those three people were killed. Then now I am showing you case studies. Like when I was in DFS Gandhinagar, I have seen cases such as there were cases of arms act. There people never killed anyone. I haven't seen cases of getting killed in Gandhinagar. I just have seen people like scaring others because they have a firearm and they will shot. That's it. They will shoot that person. That's it. Otherwise, there was no case of killing someone in Gandhinagar. In CFSL, I have seen two cases, but those cases are not solved yet. So I won't be able to share those cases with you guys because we are not allowed to do that. Okay, can anyone tell me if there are ballistic related cases? What kind of evidences will we be collecting as a forensic expert? Like till now, what I have taught you.
Everyone give answer.
GSR particles or bullet.
Can be, yes, ma'am, bullet
Ma'am,
fire.
firearms.
Cartridge cases.
So you will be finding bullet in every case, or can you be finding pellets also? Pellets, charre, if you guys know in Hindi, there is a
Yes,
Yes,
thing.
ma'am, we
ma'am.
can get
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Rather than this, what else you will be getting?
Ma'am, bullet impacts evidence like bullet holes in the wall or bullet fragments, ma'am.
Yes. Will you be able to see, like, able to find cartridge cases?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe, ma'am.
If it is ejected, then yes. Okay. I have talked about one more accessory, I can say. Okay, I will be giving it a very fancy name, accessory, as it is not an accessory, it's just a part of ammunition. So it is just a part of ammunition, okay, but I will be saying it as an accessory. We have seen that part of ammunition in shotguns. You will be able to find that at a crime scene if the crime is committed by shotgun. Tell me, what was that? Tell me.
Can you repeat the question?
I'm saying that there is a part of ammunition which is only present in shotgun firearms, okay? Shotgun firearms, which we used in hand cannon. I'm giving you a hint, which we used in hand cannon. It can also be getting discharged when you are firing a shotgun firearm. You will be able to
Short
find it
to
at the same time.
black.
What? Did someone answered?
Short to black.
It is
Fatima, your
fine.
voice is breaking.
Ma'am, it's shotgun ward.
Yes, exactly. You will be able to find those vets on the scene of crime. And firearm itself, like if someone wants to portray that crime scene as a suicide crime scene, you will be able to find that firearm also. Okay. Now these are some cases which I have studied during my graduation. So in that case, like it is not ethical to show the name if you are not an expert. Like I'm not an expert, I'm a student, so for me it is not possible to show you the names. So this is the case. Okay, first of all, we can discuss this case too. How many of you belong from South? Who is South Asian? Mahalakshmi and others? Okay. Okay. Have you heard about that Priyanka Reddy's murder case? Murder and rape case?
No, ma'am.
You haven't heard about that?
No, ma'am.
Anyone? Like, okay. So this is a case of a veterinary doctor which happened in Hyderabad in 2019. So Priyanka Reddy was a 26-year-old. I'm sure if I'm not messing the age of the doctor. She was a 26-year-old veterinary doctor, and she left her home for going to a clinic, like for dermat treatment. She was going to a clinic, and on a toll naka, her scooty, like her scooter, it was having some issues, and she left it there. Then while returning, she left home at 5 p.m., and she was returning from that clinic. It was somewhere like 10 p.m. So she parked her scooter there, and there were some issues related to petrol or some gas. But the culprits, there were four culprits who have seen her and who have seen that yes, the girl is very young. They were drunk. So what they did, they punctured her scooter, and uh, then when she came, she was like crying and she was asking for help to people. There were no rickshaws, nothing. She was constantly calling her sister, and her phone went switch off. At that time, her sister said that her sister was doing a night shift job. So her sister said that leave your scooter and just take some Rapido or take some auto rickshaw and come to home. That's it. That's what her sister told her. Then those people were constantly keeping eye on her. She was moving, and in that direction only they were moving. It was a case of lorry driver. At that time, that same crime scene, then they murdered her. Then first they raped her, then they murdered her. It was similar case like Nirbhaya. People even used to call it that Hyderabad's Nirbhaya case. So in that case, when the police was recreating the crime scene, they fired all four culprits at the scene of crime in a police encounter. And then they said that no, they were just like they were trying to run from our custody, so we fired them. So how will you be able to find a difference that what was it, a police encounter or was it a suicide? Like police said that they pointed the police gun towards police. They gave one gun to that culprit and said that you are like you can point this gun in our direction. And that culprit had that gun in his hands, and the police personnel shot them from behind. So are we able to like differentiate, was it a police encounter, was it a suicide, did that person killed others and killed himself? Like I always assumed about this thing. So if you guys have any idea. Do you have any idea?
Everyone give answer.
Okay, let me tell you. If the person have committed suicide, first you will be able to find GSR on their hands. Next, if it was a police encounter, then that person might try to run. Police officer already said them, okay, go run. Police officer gave them a chance. They like manipulated that, okay, I'm letting you run from here, because that was a case, very disturbing case. So in that case, police thought that if court is not giving the justice to that girl, we will give. So they killed all four on the scene of crime. So first, you will be finding those people's running, right? Then you will be finding a crossfire pattern when it is in when it the persons are dead because of police encounter. The bullet trajectory will be a crossfire kind of pattern. Then you might be able to see that the then there will be some damage in vehicle. What if the police shot their own vehicle and said that yes, the culprit shot our vehicle? Then in some cases we used to see the distance from which the firing was done, then the location of wound and the number of wounds. If it is a police encounter, obviously we are running. Either we will run, or either we will be just standing. But people in India are not so polite that they will just be standing and saying that yes, we committed a crime, please kill us. So obviously that person, that culprit will be running. So you will be able to find the location. Then I have taught you about wounds like close contact wound, near contact wound, far contact wounds. So yesterday we have seen that in intermediate we will be able to see the tattooing. In close contact we will be able to see the blackening and scorching. So from there we will be able to determine if it was a police encounter or if it was a suicide or homicide. Okay,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
was a very interesting case. If you guys want to read, it is available. Okay. Priya, if my screen is visible, please let me know.
Okay, ma'am.
I've just prepared this PPT on cases. This first case was homicide. Now, the background of the case was a businessman found dead in parking area after witnesses heard 3 gunshots. So these are the evidences we found at the scene of crime, which was 3 9mm cartridge cases, one bullet which was recovered from inside the body during the autopsy. Then victim's clothing, CCTV footage we will be able to see because it was a parking. There might be CCTV and there might not be CCTVs, but in this case there was CCTV footage. Then suspect's pistol, GSR swabs, cartridge cases packed separately in paper envelope. This we are talking about preservation of these evidences. Okay, so here if you have seen, there were 3 gunshots, but we only recovered one bullet during the autopsy. Where were 2 other bullets? Any idea?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It might have missed the target, ma'am.
Yes, then we are saying 3 9mm cartridge cases. That means cartridge cases got ejected. We found 3 9mm cartridge cases, but we didn't found 3 9mm bullets. We found 3 9mm cartridge cases. That's it. So in this case, I'm telling you, one shot was fired in the air, wind deflection. Okay, other shot was fired in some car. Then the third shot, it went to the person and that bullet was recovered during autopsy. Then victim's clothing, why we are using the victim's cloth? For GSR analysis, CCTV footage, corroborative evidence again. In order to support our ballistic evidences, we are using this CCTV footage. Suspect left their pistol on the scene of crime, so we found that suspect's pistol. Then GSR swabs, then preservation, how we preserve those evidences, we pack the cartridge cases and separately in paper envelopes. Okay, why are we not keeping all 3 cartridge cases in same paper bag? Can anyone tell me? No
Ma'am,
answers?
because they can rub against each other and cause a new scratches or marks.
Yeah, they will manipulate, they will like produce styration marks on one another. Very good. Then comes bullet wrapped in cotton. Now, why are we putting this bullet in cotton? Why are we not keeping it as it is? No idea. Yesterday only we have studied.
Ma'am, to protect its striations, like
Yeah, to protect their styration marks, it
yes,
is
ma'am.
placed in a rigid container. Even when we are doing test firing, we do it in cotton, because cotton does not give bullet extra marks. Will just preserve the styration. Then firearm unloaded, secured, and sealed. Why we are unloading the firearm? And we are keeping this firearm in a cardboard box. Okay. So why we are unloading a firearm?
Because
To prevent inappropriate firing, ma'am.
What?
Maybe the movement to, and also to prevent the movement of chamber, magazine
Okay.
chamber.
So we are unloading the firearm so that it doesn't misfire. It might misfire. What if the firearm falls and it misfires, right? For our safety, we are unloading the firearm. Then clothing air dried and packed in paper bags. Okay. Why we are using clothing in this case? Why we are using clothes? For GSR analysis, of course, we are using clothes for GSR analysis. We are packing it in paper bag, but first we are air drying it, because if there is blood, so it might get like it is wet, right? We can't pack wet evidences. So in then case analysis, we will perform test firing in order to know that if this particular projectile was fired from this particular firearm or not. That's it. Then in comparison microscope, if you guys have seen comparison microscope, we will be comparing all those three cartridges with the test fired cartridge case. We will be comparing firing pin marks, breech face marks, and rifling marks. And SAM EDS confirmed GSR on suspect. So here we are using SAM EDS. So here you can determine that case is not related to India. Ballistics linked the pistol to the murder. Now, how that ballistics linked the pistol to the murder? Obviously, we used IBIS, Integrated Ballistic Identification System. We gave the data to IBIS, and then that IBIS determined that what pistol, that whose pistol it was. If okay, IBIS or NIBIN will only be able to determine the firearm if it was already present in the database. Like I am committing a crime right now, and I have already committed a crime in past. Then only you will be able to. Then only IBIS and NIBIN will be able to say that yes, this was already available in my database, and this is the particular firearm which fired the projectile. Okay. Then armed robbery. In this jewelry store robbery, a warning shot was fired. Only a warning shot is fired, but this also comes under Arms Act 1959. So in this cartridge case, which touched the ceiling bullet, cartridge case is getting ejected out when we are firing. Then the bullet which touched the ceiling, it might be in mushrooming effect, like it might got what should I say, it might got like might lost its shape. Have you seen a bullet? Like imagine a situation where you have a bullet and you are like trying to get that bullet out from a JCB, like that JCB tire has crushed that bullet, so that will be causing mushrooming effect. then CCTV and firearm. Preservation: bullet removed carefully to protect styrations. We took that bullet and protect those styrations. Then digital CCTV copied securely, again the corroborative evidences. And case analysis is microscopic comparison, matched the bullet and cartridge case to recover pistol supporting witness accounts. So people might have seen who was the culprit at that situation, and this case is from India because we are doing microscopic comparison of matched bullet and cartridge cases. And then police encounter. This is a different case, but we have already talked about a police encounter case, that in police encounter what else you will be getting. Then this is accidental shooting. A teenager died while cleaning a shotgun. So a person answered something when I was saying firearm unloaded. This is why you have to keep your firearm unloaded because it might lead to accidental shooting. So in this shotgun, in this evidences we have shotgun, fired shell, fingerprints, clothing, blood-stained patterns of that person. Now, while we are preserving this, we will be unloading the weapon. Then biological evidences, they are dried before packaging. Then case analysis, mechanical inspection found no defect. Contact range characteristics and fingerprint evidences indicated accidental discharge. Then linked shooting. Three shootings across the city appeared connected. So these kind of have you seen that movie Holiday? Holiday of Akshay Kumar.
Yes, ma'am.
In that you have seen those terrorists, they called each other, and at the exact same time all three, there were not three people, I guess there were 8 to 9 cities where they at the exact same time they exposed a bomb. So that is what we are talking in case of linked shooting. So three shooting across the city appeared connected. Bullet, cartridge cases, illegal pistol, DNA swaps, mobile phones. So here you will be getting mobile phones. Like if those people were connected to each other, uh, see, I have a family, I have a father, I have a mother, and me. If someone is my enemy and he wants to kill all three of us at the same time. I am at my home, my mother is at work, my father is at work, or if I am in college, my mother is at work and my father is at work. Okay, he want to kill all three of us. So now that person did criminal conspiracy. Do you all know what is conspiracy? Are you guys aware of conspiracy? Supari dena.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now that person did this conspiracy, that yes, I am here, I am standing right in front of that girl whom you want to kill, I am here standing right in front of her father, and I am standing right in front of her mother. Now they want to kill all three of us at the exact same time. They were linked, that crime was linked, right? We three were related to each other, we three were a family. So this is how this linked type of shootings takes place. In this, you will be able to get mobile phones as an evidence because it might be used to contact each other, illegal pistol, DNA swaps of people, cartridge cases, bullets, and then preservation, as you all know. So till now, everything is clear.
Everyone, if you have further any doubts, you can ask.
Should we end the meeting, Priya? Or is there
Yes, ma'am.
anyone?
No, ma'am, we can conclude this session. So, thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable knowledge and guidance with us in entire sessions. And I would also like to thank all our interns. Some of you actively participated throughout the internship, while others choose to observe and learn quietly. I sincerely hope that each one of you has gained valuable knowledge and deeper understanding of forensic science through this journey. So, wishing you all the very best for your future. Keep learning, keep growing, and never stop exploring the world of forensic science. Hope so. We will meet again. Once again, thank you so much.